Yes, that was a Glock in my pocket, and I'm still glad to see you. It was the new Glock 43, 9mm, subcompact, single stack. So that was literally the very first 7 rounds out of this gun, first 7 rounds I've fired, and it was straight out of the pocket, out of this pocket holster, with Spear Gold Dot, 124 grain hollow point, carry ammo, carry gun, carry ammo, carry location. Okay, you know the story. A year ago, Glock introduced the 42, a tiny pocket-sized 380, and everybody went, "Oh man, we wanted a 9mm single stack." And even though they complained, they still bought them in droves. Now, Glock has sold like 250,000 copies of the 380 G42. So I think everyone is anticipating that the G43 is going to sell easily that much, probably twice that much. So they're starting to trickle in now. People are getting them. There are videos online. Some of the big channels have already posted their coverage of the initial look at the Glock 43. So here's my first 100, my traditional first look at the pistol, and my first thoughts. And I will offer some of those thoughts to you now on the work table, and then get this thing out to the range, put 100 rounds or more through it, and give you my thoughts then. No drama. Let's take a look at this pistol. Here it is, the Glock 43, exactly the way it comes from the toy store. So we have our gun lock. Throw that in our pile of gun locks. And we have our cleaning brush and rod. We have 2 magazines come with this pistol, and of course our little magazine loader. And you have your first fired casing from test firing at the factory, the owner's manual, and all that good stuff up in the top. So basically, here it is. There's the meat and potatoes of how the Glock 43 arrives. And it comes with, as I said, 2 magazines. They are both 6-round, single stack 9mm magazines. One of the magazines is a flush mount, and one of the magazines has this pinky extension. I actually do like the pinky extension on the gun, but I don't mind not having it. I don't mind the flush mount either, because it's easy to just let your pinky slide right underneath there. As I get this thing out and shoot it, and also as I maybe carry it a little bit, I'm going to evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of that pinky extension magazine, because it is actually fairly nice to have that there. If you have small enough hands like I do, that it does give you a full grip, because it actually doesn't add much to the important height of the gun because of the way it's angled. Also, if you are located in the mid-Atlantic portion of the eastern United States, that would be New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware. I think that's it. There is a chain of stores called Lawman's Supply Company. Check them out, and I'd like to thank those guys for helping me get my mitts on this guy. So the 43 is basically just a slightly larger version of the 42. Think of it more of a big 42 rather than a small 19, for example, because of the design changes. It's not the same inside. This is a single pin design. That's one obvious thing you can see right there. So the locking block mechanism and some of the internals are going to be different. They're much more like the 42. Okay, that's all discussion for a later time and for a deeper look review. But right now, again, it's just all about the first impressions. One of the things I noticed right away was they did a little better job with the slide serrations on the 43 compared to the 42. The 42, these were so shallow as to almost be worthless. It was really hard to get a good grip to rack that slide, but the 43, much better, much better. They definitely improved that. It is a Gen 4, so it has the Gen 4 sized large magazine release. It has the Gen 4 stippling, but a very, very shallow version of the Gen 4 stippling. It's not going to be nearly aggressive as it is on most larger pistols. Again, very similar to the 42, and one of the very first things I'm going to do is get a Talon grip on this thing. All right, let's take a quick look inside. We'll see that it is still a Glock in most every way, actually in every way. It's still a Glock, brand new. It comes a little bit dry. They have that that copper or bronze colored lubricant. You can see a little bit right up here on the trigger bar. See it up in the slide along this lug here. I will put some extreme weapons grease in this thing before I shoot it. I don't like to shoot them dry just the way they come out of the box. I like to lube them up a little bit better. I will take it down and clean it a little bit. Make sure I get all the grit out of it. Alright, so I'm going to put the flush magazine in there to give us a little bit of better idea for comparison. Alright, so let's compare this gun real quickly to a couple other guns. So the first obvious comparison that a lot of people have made, are making, want to see made, etc. are the 43 compared to the 42. So here you have it. 42 is on the left, it's the smaller one. The 43 is on the right. It's not much bigger, it's not much longer, just a little bit, you know, a good ½ inch maybe. Thickness looks to be extremely comparable, could even be exact. In terms of thickness. The height is very close, but the 43 is a little bit taller, but not by much. I mean, not even a, you know, it's like 1/8 of an inch taller. So it is very, very similar in size, in design, and in feel to the 42. Now, some people want to see it compared to the baby Glock, the 26, so here's that comparison. Height-wise, it is exactly the same. Exact same height. You can see the width difference right there. It's a good look at the grip and the slide from that that back plate. Okay, you can see it here. You can see the difference in thickness. The Glock 26 on the right is much thicker, but they're about the same length, give or take 1/8 of an inch there. And of course, double stack versus single stack, there's a big difference there. So you got your 10+1 and your 6+1, and the price you pay for capacity is always going to be extra size somewhere or another. It's either got to be taller or it's got to be fatter. The comparison I was interested in making, and I was glad to see, I know Hickok made this comparison briefly with his look at the 42, and I wanted to see it compared to the gun. The 9mm that I typically am going to carry most often is the Car PM9, and have for quite a long time. So this is basically has been my go-to pocket carry or deep concealment carry when needed. So I wanted to see, is the 43 a potential replacement for that? And thickness-wise, they're just about the same. Height-wise, the Glock is a little taller, but not much. Not much at all. You know, maybe that same 1/8 of an inch difference is about all you've got there. The big difference between these two is length, and you can see that here. The Car is much shorter. Now length, let me move this guy out of the way. Length is really not the most important. I've had that discussion before. But it does come into play eventually. I mean, it can't be as long as it wants to be, especially if you want to consider pocket carry, because it does help when the gun is short, because then it doesn't have to sit. It can sit deeper in your pocket if it's shorter. But in most dimensions, these two are very comparable. Again, you just got that extra length, and it's probably a good inch, looks like. I was curious about the thickness of the two, and I actually did measure that, but let me do that again real quick. And it's a little surprising. If you measure the car PM9 at its thickest point, it's about 1105. So it's an inch, 0.105. And then if you measure the Glock, right here at its thickest point, 1060. So it's 1060. And even if I go all the way to the slide stop control, which is typically going to be outside of a holster and not really a factor, it's still just 1060. So the Glock is actually a thinner gun than the PM9, and that's a really important measurement. So the height is not significantly different. In fact, if I were to put a magazine in the PM9, it's probably, because the PM9 magazine has a tendency to stick out awkwardly. So if I were to put a magazine in the PM9, it would probably be actually slightly taller. But so the height is about the same. The length is a little more, but the thickness is actually less. It's thinner. So the next question I had was, well, gee, if it's that close in size, could it possibly fit into a pocket holster that I already have? And this is a DeSantis. I think it's the Nemesis, but I'm not, don't quote me on that. I'm not going to swear to it. It's been too long. I've had this a really long time. This is for the car PM9. Glock 43. Yeah, I'd like it if that trigger guard went in a little bit further, but that's a fit. So I'm sure they'll make another model of this holster, and others will make similar holsters made for the 43 that will come back a little bit further. I would not feel any reason not to use this holster for this gun. If you're going to have a single stack 9mm, one of the advantages for me is that you could pocket carry it. If you can't pocket carry it, then you might as well go with a double stack if you're going to put it in an inside the waistband holster and all that, because that little bit of extra width isn't going to be that big a difference. But for pocket carry, it is. And this gun could be pocket carried, even for someone who's not really big and doesn't wear a lot of big baggy clothes. Okay, so here it is, the Glock 43. Folks have waited a long time. That's what it looks like. That's what it's sized like. Let's take it out. Put some rounds down range. See how it shoots. Okay, this is the Glock 43. This is the first 100. And now, 12 rounds of Freedom munitions. Going for an orange dot 7 yards away. First 6 look good. I see we have the Glock ejection going. You can tell you've been shooting a Glock when you got little cuts in your forehead. So here we are, Glock 43. This thing is a little shooter. So here's our sight picture. Give you some idea of the recoil. Glock 43. 9mm, subcompact, single stack. Single hand. This thing is a shooter. It is absolutely a shooter. Herders select. Headshots at 7 yards. So, I've put 100 through it, but I'm going to put a few more. I started out with Spear Gold Dot, 124 grain jacketed hollow points. Those were the very first 7 rounds that I shot through the gun. So I'm going to finish up with 2 other defensive loads. So right here I have 6 rounds of Hornady Critical Duty, 135 grain, 134 grain, something like that. I'll put that information here. And here, Federal Hydroshock, 124 grain, jacketed hollow points. Both self-defense loads, both perfect candidates for what you would carry in this gun. So let's start out with the Critical Duty. Federal Hydroshock. Man, what a shooter. I gotta tell you, I was having a hard time getting myself all excited about the 43 coming out. I was focused on, you know, the 40, 10mm and things like that. And this one, you know, sort of like, obviously you gotta get your hands on it, you gotta look at it, you gotta shoot it. But wow, I'm impressed. This thing is a shooter. A really, really good shooter. And man, I'll tell you what, once I get a Talon grip on here, there'll be no stopping me. The Glock 43, after just over 100 rounds, maybe 118 rounds or so today, is one heck of a shooter, much more so than I was expecting. You know, I've shot, obviously I have the 42 and I've shot it quite a bit and I'm used to it, but you take something that's not much bigger, not much heavier than the 42, and you go to the 9mm, substantially more pressure in that cartridge, and then you go to defense loads, again substantially more pressure, and you expect it to be a lot snappier than it really is. And I'm really impressed the way this thing shoots. I'm impressed with the accuracy. I mean, I ended up scattering them all over the target here when I was, you know, shooting faster and having fun, but when I was paying attention to what I was doing, I could just eat a 2-inch hole right in the middle of this target all day long, offhand at 7 yards. So that's just the first 100 through the Glock 43. There will be many, many, many hundreds more, and I will probably bring you along. I'm going to have to do some comparisons and just bring this thing out and exercise it some more. This is a fun little gun to shoot, and it has a lot of promise in application. I mean, again, fits right into this pocket holster, fits right into my pocket. This could become a favorite. So there's the first look, the first 100 at the new Glock 43. Could be a small wonder. I put 119 rounds in total through it, and I had no failures of any kind, no hiccups at all. Accuracy was extremely good with everything I shot through it. Obviously, like every gun, it likes some things a little better than others. And if that wasn't good enough, when I got home from the range, look what was waiting. The Talon rubber grip for the Glock 43. So yes, indeed, folks, the Talon grips are available for the Glock 43. They are ready to ship. So I want to thank the great folks in Steamboat Springs, Colorado at Talon Gun Grips for getting this out to me so quickly. Can't wait to get the gun back out now and shoot it with this Talon grip on it, because that is going to make shooting it even more fun. Who knows, maybe in time this thing could wind up with just as good a track record as another number 43 that I used to spend a lot of time around. Okay, and one quick bonus comparison, just for size and general look, and that is the Springfield Armory XDS. Now, my XDS happens to be 45 ACP, but if you're familiar with that gun, you know that it is identical in every way dimensionally. And it's almost identical in every way dimensionally to the Glock 43. These two guns are extremely close, and I have absolutely no doubt that with the success of the XDS, that Glock did a lot of comparing and making sure that they were going to measure up, so to speak, or measure down to the XDS. So, a quick answer to the question, you know, how does it compare to the XDS? Well, almost identically. So there's the Glock 43. First look, first 100. We'll be seeing more of this thing.